Well, sorry I missed the show tonight, but we have taken the liberty of keeping our Fridays with Thurber going via tape. So reminding you only that I am reading from the Library of America, Thurber, Writings and Drawings, published in 1996. This is one of my favorite of the short stories of James Thurber, originally published in The Middle-Aged Man on the Flying Trapeze in 1935. It is called The Black Magic of Barney Haller by James Thurber. It was one of those hot days on which the earth is uninhabitable, even as early as 10 o'clock in the morning, even on the hill where I live under the dark maples. The long porch was hot, and the wicker chair I sat in complained hotly. My coffee was beginning to wear off, and with it the momentary illusion it gives that things are right and life is good. There were sultry mutterings of thunder. I had a quick feeling that if I looked up from my book, I would see Barney Haller. I looked up, and there he was, coming along the road, lightning playing about his shoulders, thunder following him like a dog. Barney is, or was, my hired man. He is strong and amiable, sweaty and dependable, slowly and heavily competent, but he is also eerie. He traffics with the devil. His ears twitch when he talks, but it isn't so much that as the things he says. Once in late June, when all of a moment sabers began to flash brightly in the heavens and bowling balls rumbled, I took refuge in the barn. I always have a feeling that I'm going to be struck by lightning and either riven like an old apple tree or left with a foot that aches in rainy weather and a habit of fainting. Those things happen. Barney came in not to escape the storm to which he is or pretends to be indifferent, but to put the scythe away. Suddenly he said the first of those things that made me, when I was with him, faintly creepy. He pointed at the house. "Once I see this boat come down the rock," he said. It is phenomena like that of which I stand in constant dread. Boats coming down rocks, people being teleported, statues dripping blood, old regrets and dreams in the form of Luna moths fluttering against the windows at midnight. Of course, I finally figured out what Barney meant, or what I comforted myself with believing he meant. Something about a bolt coming down the lightning rod on the house. A commonplace, an utterly natural thing. I should have dismissed it, but it had its effect on me. Here was a stolid man, smelling of hay and leather, who talked like somebody out of Charles Fort's books, like a traveler back from Oz. And all the time the lightning was zigging and zagging around him. On this hot morning, when I saw Barney coming along with his faithful Storm trudging behind him, I went back frowningly to my copy of Swan's Way. I hoped that Barney, seeing me absorbed in a book, would pass by without saying anything. I read, "I myself seemed actually to have become the subject of my book, a church, a quartet, the rivalry between Francis I and Charles V. I could feel Barney standing, looking at me, but I didn't look at him. "This morning, by," said Barney, "I go hunt grotches in the woods." "That's fine," I said, and turned a page and pretended to be engrossed in what I was reading. Barney walked on. He had wanted to talk some more, but he walked on. After a paragraph or two, his words began to come between me and the words in the book. "By, I go hunt grotches in the woods." If you are susceptible to such things, it is not difficult to visualize grotches. They fluttered into my mind, ugly little creatures about the size of whippoorwills, only covered with blood and honey and the scrapings of church bells. Grotches. Who and what, I wondered, really was this thing in the form of a hired man that kept anointing me ominously in passing with abracadabra? Barney didn't go toward the woods at once. He weeded the corn. He picked apple boughs off the lawn. He knocked a yellow jacket's nest down out of a plum tree. It was raining now, but he didn't seem to notice it. He kept looking at me out of the corner of his eye, and I kept looking at him out of the corner of my eye. "What dime is it, please?" he called to me finally. I put down my book and sauntered out to him. "When you go for these grotches," I said firmly, "I'll go with you." I was sure he would not want me to go, and I was right. He protested that he could get the grotches himself. "I'll go with you," I said stubbornly. We stood looking at each other, and then abruptly, just to give him something to ponder over, I quoted, I'm going out to clean the pasture spring. I'll only stop to rake the leaves away and wait to watch the water clear I may. I shan't be gone long. You come too. It wasn't, I realized, very good abracadabra, but it served. Barney looked at me in a puzzled way. Yes, he said vaguely. It's 5 minutes to 12, I said, remembering he had asked. Den we go, he said, and we trudged through the rain over to the orchard fence and climbed that and opened a gate and went out into the meadow that slopes up to the woods. I had a prefiguring of Barney at some proper spot deep in the woods, prancing around like a goat, casting off his false nature, shedding his hired man's garments, dropping his Teutonic accent, repeating diabolical phrases, conjuring up grotches. There was a great slash of lightning and a long bumping of thunder as we reached the edge of the woods. I turned and fled. Glancing over my shoulder, I saw Barney standing and staring after me. It turned out, on the face of it, to be as simple as the boat that came down the rock. Grotches were crotches, crotched saplings, which he cut down to use as supports under the peach boughs, because in bearing time they became so heavy with fruit that there was danger of the branches snapping off. I saw Barney later putting the crotches in place. We didn't have much to say to each other. I can see now that he was beginning to suspect me, too. About 6 o'clock next evening, I was alone in the house and sleeping upstairs. Barney rapped on the door of the front porch. I knew it was Barney because he called to me. I woke up slowly. It was dark for 6 o'clock. I heard rumblings and saw flickerings. Barney was standing at the front door with his storm at heel. I had the conviction that it wasn't storming anywhere except around my house. There couldn't, without the intervention of the devil or one of his agents, be so many lightning storms in one neighborhood. I had been dreaming of Proust and the church at Cambrai and Madeleines dipped in tea and the rivalry between Francis I and Charles V. My head whirled and I didn't get up. Barney kept on rapping. He called out again. There was a flash followed by a sharp splitting sound. I leaped up. This time I thought, he is here to get me. I had a notion that he was standing at the door barefooted, with a wreath of grape leaves around his head and a wild animal's skin slung over his shoulder. I didn't want to go down, but I did. He was, as usual, solid, amiable, dressed like a hired man. I went out onto the porch and looked at the improbable storm now on in all its fury. It's getting pretty bad, I said, meaningly. Barney looked at the rain placidly. Well, I said irritably, what's up? Barney turned his little squinty blue eyes on me. We go to the Garrick now and become warbs, he said. The hell we do, I thought to myself quickly. I was uneasy. I was, you might even say, terrified, but I determined not to show it. If he began to chant incantations or to make obscene signs, or if he attempted to sling me over his shoulder, I resolved to plunge right out into the storm, lightning and all, and run to the nearest house. I didn't know what they would think at the nearest house when I burst in upon them, or what I would tell them, but I didn't intend to accompany this amiable-looking fiend to any Garrick and become a warb. I tried to persuade myself that there was some simple explanation that warbs would turn out to be as innocuous as boats on rocks and grotches in the woods, but the conviction gripped me in the growling of the thunder that here at last was the moment when Barney Haller, or whoever he was, had chosen to get me. I walked towards the steps that lead to the lawn and turned and faced him grimly. Listen, I barked suddenly. Did you know that even when it isn't brillig, I can produce slithy tobes? Did you happen to know that the Momrath never lived that could outgrabe me? Yeah, and furthermore, I can become anything I want to. Even if I were a warb, I wouldn't have to keep on being one if I didn't want to. I could become a playing card at will, too. Once I was the jack of clubs, but I forgot to take my glasses off and some guy recognized me. Barney was backing slowly away toward the petunia box at one end of the porch. His little blue eyes were wide. He saw that I had him. I think I go now, he said. And he walked out into the rain. The rain followed him down the road. I have a new hired man now. Barney never came back to work for me after that day. Of course, I figured out finally what he meant about the Garrick and the Warbs. He had simply gotten horribly mixed up in trying to tell me he was going up into the garret and clear out the wasps, of which I have thousands. The new hired man is afraid of them. Barney could have scooped them up in his hands and thrown them out the window without getting stung. I am sure he trafficked with the devil. But I am sorry I let him go. The black magic of Barney Haller. That's Countdown. Portions written by James Thurber. The Rachel Maddow Show is up next. I'm Keith Olbermann. Good night and good luck.